Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Felipe, and you're listening to the Total Basis Podcast. And with me, as always, is Sean Flannery. How you doing, Sean?
Oh, I am doing great. Just another early Sunday morning, and we're bringing you a nice little weekly recap and some other interesting tidbits for the next week.
Yeah, Sunday morning come down right here at the Total Basis Podcast. Let's get going. Let's get off because we have a lot of players to cover today, as we always want to do. And we are looking at the CBSSports.com fantasy baseball most coveted players of the last week or so, according to their website numbers.
Yeah.
And at the very top of the list is one Jed Lowry, former Oakland A's farmhand, and then he's gone to the Astros, to the Mets, and now he's back with Oakland, trying to actually no, not it's a Red Sox. I didn't realize that Jed Lowry was a Red Sox before.
It was Red Sox, then Astros, then someplace else, and then Oakland, I think, and then Houston, Mets, and then back to Oakland.
No, he was at one point. He was just boomeranging Houston, Oakland, Mets, Oakland. So anytime the A's are desperate enough for a second baseman, they'll just summon Jed Lowry like they've done this year. He's doing Jed Lowry things with the good walk rate, with the really good, with the relatively good strikeout rate. On base percentage is high, but he's also 37 years old. So how much do we want to believe in Jed Lowry for the rest of the season?
I actually believe in it a good bit more so than most other people. And that's because Jed Lowry had two completely lost years. I'm not sure if you read the article in The Athletic, but the whole ordeal that led him to playing, or appearing and only having 8 plate appearances for the Mets over 2 years was he came in, they realized he had a issue with his knee in spring training 2019, and he wanted to get the surgery. The team said no. They said, we'll figure out a way to rehab it and play through it. And then 2019 season ended. He said, okay, now can I get the surgery? And the team said, no. And if you do, we're going to file a grievance against you. And that led to him just sitting out all of the 2020 season. But when he's healthy, if you look at his 2 seasons before coming to the Mets, which was 2017 and 2018, he was I just had it pulled up here. He was a top 25 player in WAR in all of baseball. He was tied with guys like Yasmani Grandal and Manny Machado, and ahead of guys like Bryce Harper and Xander Bogaerts. He's a professional hitter over those 2 years that he had in Oakland. 272, 356, 448, 122 WRC plus, 37 home runs, and over 330 runs and RBIs combined over the 2 years. And Oakland brought him back on a minor league deal. I mean, this was the complete buy low. They didn't have a shortstop or really a second baseman at that point, but until they signed Lowry and then traded for Elvis Andrus. Mm-hmm. And Jed Lowry has just gone back to doing what he did. He's healthy. He has his legs underneath him again. And when he was in Oakland last time, Matt Chapman really credited Jed Lowry with not only being a good teammate, which he is, but being like the secondary hitting coach, the hitting coach that actually gets to step into the box and then can come back into the dugout and explain in a language that the other hitters understand, saying, hey, this is what this guy's throwing. This is how we need to attack him.
Yeah, it's those intangibles that only veterans can bring, the ones that all of a sudden, it's like I never took too much stock in them. And now that everybody just kind of wants to piss all over bad contracts and just look at the numbers and results-based statistics, all of a sudden those intangibles no one cares about. But, this is what we talk about, right, Sean? It's like those intangibles, they can't be measured, and that ultimately leads to results for everybody else on those respective teams. So that's a good thing. I always like Jed Lowry. It's just that, it seems like he was always kind of pushed to the side. And you mentioned professional hitter in a points league. That doesn't fly too well because eventually you got to hit for some power. But, he can get on base. He's very patient, and that travels to everybody involved on his own team. So that's good to hear. I like the story. People are asking me why I shaved. I had a wedding to attend to yesterday. So I had to, my daughter had fun with it. She was like touching my face the whole time. And
she was like, what is this?
Yeah, she was laughing her ass off. Like I never like. Usually it's easy to make her laugh, but in this situation, all she had to do was touch my face, and just like she probably thought, "Oh, yeah, you're as soft as my skin." I guess I'm a big baby now. Okay,
We already knew that. Oh, this was the stat that I wanted to bring up when Jed Lowry came up. Was the most hard hit balls in the AL, 95 miles an hour or higher. Kyle Seager 23, Mitch Haniger 22, Nelson Cruz 22, and Jed Lowry 22. So Jed Lowry has as many 95-mile-an-hour hit balls as Nelson Cruz.
All right.
Interesting take, but you know,
you
it's
heard it
there.
here. You heard it here first, guys. According to Sean Flannery, Jet Lowry is now Nelson Cruz. So go get him.
Hey, they never age.
Well, yeah. All right,
we don't know how. Actually, we do with Nelson Cruz, but
and Jet Lowry, all he did was take a year off last year, right? Is that what happened?
2 years.
2 years, sorry.
Yeah, he got a whole 8 plate appearances in 2019. At the end of the year, he didn't start. He just appeared as a pinch hitter and had no walks or had no hits in, I think, 1 walk.
So there you go. He's fresh. He's fresh.
Yeah, he's absolutely fresh.
All right. Husker Yanoa, this is a guy that you and I were kind of championing last week, especially the 2 starts that he was going to get this week. First start looked pretty good. The second start did not look so good. But he's still, I think people are buying into the hype for Husker Yanoa. Are we still buying Husker Yanoa for the rest of the season here, Sean?
It's interesting when you look at I thought he was a lefty for the weirdest reason, but he is not a lefty. He is a righty. Okay. He's got the good, 95-mile-an-hour heat, and he's got a great slider. And when you look at the pitch similarities based on velocity and movement on Baseball Savant, you get some interesting names. You get guys like Brandon Woodruff and Tyler Glasnow. And then you also get guys like Dylan Cease and Mitch Keller, which are the kind of I have great stuff, but I have no clue what I'm doing with it. And so it's interesting. Like I said, he has that great slider. He's got a batting average against of under 175. Whiff rate is over 40%. And the velo on the fastball is good, but for 2 years in a row now, going back into 2020, his fastball just gets crushed. Even though it has good velo, batting average against of 350, it was 342 last year. It's just not fooling hitters. It might be a guy that I play matchups with. Yeah. Obviously, last week we were really excited. He was going to get the Marlins and the Cubs. Yeah, that seemed like a great matchup to play him. And he was great. He was great against the Marlins, and he just laid an absolute egg versus the Cubs. He's a guy to keep an eye on. I'm not rushing to add him. Usually he's been added in most leagues by now. As we can see, he's been added in like 53% of leagues based on what you sent me last night. So
he's at 60 now. So
yeah, 60. He
keeps rising there.
I won't be the guy that goes and tries to get him, probably.
Yeah, and I'm contemplating if I should drop him or not because, like you mentioned, he's a young guy. He's only
22.
Yeah, 22. I mean, the future value isn't there, but you mentioned the stuff is there, so that's kind of intriguing. And the Braves are always desperate for pitching, and he basically shot up and leapfrog all those other prospects we had mentioned before on this Braves team. So there's a lot of intrigue. The Braves are a good team this year, so he'll get the run support, theoretically speaking. So, but at the same time, that matchup against the Cubs was a real turnoff for me, I guess. So now I have some decisions to do.
Do you have pulled up in front of you who his next start is against?
Oh, no, but I can search for that really quick. But as I was saying, I'm kind of a crossroads with Huascar. I was hoping that he could be not just a 2-start pitcher for me, but a long-term play for me as well. And unfortunately, CVS. Oh, I see what happened. CVS is being very difficult right now.
Of course it is.
Yeah, as it's wont to do here. But let's check it out. Huascar Yanoa, 22-year-old, 45 future value. His next start will be against, Jesus Christ. There it is. Luke Weaver. There's another guy, right?
So the Diamondbacks, that might be a good start for him. I would, if I had him, I would keep him in my lineup just to see how he rebounds. But if he lays another egg against Arizona, then I would say it's time to pack it up and go home.
Well, that'd be a shame because, like you said, long-term play. But yeah, I might just do it and cut bait right now and just keep an eye on him for the rest of the season, see how he performs. Diamondbacks are 5-10, so it looks to be a nice matchup for him.
And they got another offensive injury. Tim LeCastro is going to hit the IL, dislocated his pinky, required 4 stitches. So I'm sure that looked ugly.
Ugh.
And can you imagine? It was actually on his first ever caught stealing that he breaks his finger. So it's like, that's what you get. You do it 28 times in a row, major league record, without being caught. And then the first time you get caught, I'm just going to screw up my hand real bad. That's why I got caught stealing. It wasn't because the catcher got me. It was because I broke my hand.
Yeah.
That's why.
That's a real tragedy there. Next guy up is Zach McKinstry. From the LA Dodgers, 54% ownership rate and rising. And I'm assuming he's getting playing time because of Cody Bellinger, or what?
He's one of those utility guys. He's played all over the infield, but I think he's mainly playing outfield for them right now. If I can pull up, he's played 8 games in right field, 3 in left, and 6 at second base. So those are kind of his positions there. For one, I'm not all that interested in him. He's one of those guys that when he was in AAA for the Dodgers, everyone was like, oh my God, this guy's so good, but he has nowhere to play because it's the Dodgers. In AAA, he had 95 plate appearances and batted .382 with a .421 on base and a .753 slugging. Of course, that's in the PCL. He had 7 home runs and only 89 at bats. That's awesome. But he, just by looking at his kind of periphery baseball savant things, he can't hit a breaking ball. He whiffs like crazy. He can't hit a breaking ball. And once pitchers adjust to that, I think he's going to be done. And I think guys like maybe Edwin Rios or Matt Beatty get more of that playing time than Zach McKinstry.
All right, moving on. So that's a no from you?
Yeah, that's a no from me.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Short-term play here, but whatever. Wilson Ramos. It's that time of year where people realize that the catchers that they drafted are crap. And now Wilson Ramos has.
I would have expected Wilson Ramos to be drafted in almost every league.
Well, he's only owned in 67% of leagues right now. And it's been rising. The previous week was only 30. So teams are desperate. They go to that old veteran that they can trust. Is he still someone that you can trust there, Sean?
Well, the max EV is up slightly, and Wilson Ramos has always been a guy that could hit. In 2020 was probably his worst hitting season in the last several years. But you look at the years before that in 2018, 2017, Wilson Ramos could hit. He's always been, I believe, one of the most underrated offensive hitting catchers, and especially in fantasy, because he always gave you a solid average. And not just a solid average, but he gave you a little bit of power to go with it. And if you're in a points league, he didn't strike out all that much, which helps even more. This year, there was a time earlier in the season, I know we already are early in the season, but Wilson Ramos was like 100th percentile in average EV, max EV. He was just absolutely crushing the ball. Still is. It's just the batting average, it has come down a little bit. It's down to 234. Strikeout rate's a little bit up. But if you need a catcher, if like you're stuck with whoever the 10th best catcher is, Wilson Ramos was probably better than that right now.
All right. Yeah. At least a steady option for now, and then we'll figure it out later kind of deal here. Our guy, Emmanuel Clase, he's now so much for James Marinchak getting the save opportunities, and it looks like Emmanuel Clase kind of has usurped that throne from him, so to speak. He went from 37% to 67%. Is the Cleveland closing situation finally figured out there, Sean?
Slightly. He did just have a blown save. I believe it was yesterday against Cleveland.
No, he's with Cleveland. He's with Cleveland.
Oh yeah, well, against Cincinnati. I'm sorry. Karinchak picked up a save earlier in the week, but it does still appear that Clase is the go-to guy. But I could still see Karinchak getting anywhere from 10 to 15 saves this year, just based on maybe they bring Clase in earlier. Maybe they bring Clase in with men on base, but it does look like it is Clase's job to lose.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me as well. I mean, it's hard to not use a guy with 100-mile-per-hour cutter in
Oh,
that
it's
situation.
like the stupidest pitch in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes no sense. Like we talk about Jacob DeGrom's fastball and like Corbin Burns' new cutter, and they're like, oh, Jacob DeGrom's hitting 101. He's throwing a 95 slider. Corbin Burns is throwing a 97-mile-an-hour cutter, and it's like Emmanuel Clase is just like, here, hold my beer, and just goes out there and throws 100-mile-an-hour cutters like it's nothing.
Yeah. Well, here's another guy. Speaking of starting pitchers, Joe Ross went from 18% to 47%. He's scheduled for 2 starts next week. And he's already been picked up in my league, so now I got to look for him. But Joe Ross, I know you're not very excited for this one, but you got to admit that the 2 start is an intriguing thing. And here are his 2 starts. Jack Flaherty on Monday, and then in New York against Taiwan Walker. So that information.
I don't want Joe Ross in any of those games. I don't care that he's 27. I don't care that he's actually having a good year. His last 3 seasons, he had a 5+ ERA in 3 straight years. I'm sorry. It's just no. I want no part of Joe Ross. If Tyson Ross was still a thing, if he still had an arm attached to his shoulder, I'd probably pick Tyson Ross over Joe Ross. But I think Tyson Ross is done. So
no, he's been done. I had so much, I had so much high hopes for Tyson Ross, and yeah, it's a shame what happened to him. So okay, that's a definite no on Joe Ross. All right, we're gonna skip Eduardo Escobar because we're only wanting to know.
For right now, his sinker is actually one of the better performing ones.
For right now.
For Joe Ross, 249 expected batting average with an actual batting average of 133. Are they hitting it right into the ground? They're not even hitting it really right into the ground. So maybe a little bit of luck there.
Yeah.
The slider, I want no. It's so boring, and I don't trust it.
Well, it's those 2 starts, man. They don't care who it comes, and it's a name that people recognize. Oh, it's Tyson Ross's little brother. Let's go pick him up, and he plays for the Nationals, who won the World Series 2 years ago, and people assume it's going to be the same thing from before, and it really it's like you mentioned, he's already 27 years old, which I like to mention all the time. 27 is the new 30 years old, so no. But he has 2 starts, so quantity in some cases beats out the quality aspect of it. So I think that's why people are chasing. But this might be a one and done thing, even for those owners who picked them up this past week, I should say. Like I said, we're gonna skip Eduardo Escobar. We move on to Yimi Garcia. Now it looks like we spoke about Clase. Now the Cleveland situation being figured out. It looks like the Marlins situation is finally being figured out. Is that how you see it there, Sean?
Yes, and while his savant sliders and a lot of that stuff don't paint a pretty picture, the underlying skill set has not changed. He's throwing fastballs. He's throwing a lot of them. He's throwing it up in the zone, and he's being effective. And it might not be pretty right now, but he is effective, and he has that closer's job, and I absolutely love it. I mean, I've only been waiting for 2 years, so
Yeah, same. But it looks like he's finally getting it, so hopefully it stays that way. More closer situations. So we talked a lot about the closer. So it's basically what we're doing here today, Sean, is going to be an update from our conversation from last week. Lou Trevino also showing up, going from 20% to 46%. How's the Oakland A's situation looking right now for you?
I think Trevino is the guy to lose it, but there's also several other options: Jake Diekman, JB Wendelken, Sergio Romo. And we know Oakland, they'll use all the pieces that they need. So Trevino is really kind of like, he's Blake Trinan. I mean, he has that hard sinker. He doesn't really miss a lot of bats, doesn't strike a lot of guys out. But if he has anything like his 2018 season when he first came up, Trevino, where he had 82 strikeouts in 74 innings, that would be huge. Right. And if he gets that volume with that type of effectiveness, he's probably one of the best relief pitchers in fantasy.
All right. Yeah, I've always liked Luke Trevino. Just how do you fit him into a fantasy league? I know in our league, in our baseball life league, we can kind of get away with picking up a Luke Trevino because he'll at least contribute in other ways besides saves. But in a points league or in a traditional 5x5, it's a tough sell, but someone to keep an eye on. Danny Duffy is the next guy here. He's been moving up the leaderboard here on the waiver wire. I know I always make fun of you because you champion Danny Duffy. I believe though
It's less championing and more. We know
more,
what he is. We know he's not great, but he can still kind of help you.
yeah, and he has 2 starts. I think the reason we talked about him last week was because he had 2 starts last week, and I guess some games got moved around and got canceled or delayed or whatever. But now this week, supposedly he has to get 2 starts, right? So Monday he'll get the Tampa Bay Rays and Ryan Yarbrough, and then on Sunday he gets Michael Fulmer and the Detroit Tigers. So do you like those
Could
matchups
be a
there?
risky matchup. Tampa's done pretty well against left-handed pitchers so far, and the Tigers, is it in Detroit?
Yeah, it's in Detroit.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, it's not tough, but it's a good thing for him. But it's a tough choice because Tampa has done so well against lefties. I'd probably still start him.
All right. Kendall Grave, man. I don't know why. That's a head scratcher for me. I've not been paying attention to the Kendall
Well,
Graveman
I
movement.
will give an absolute shout out here to Mikey over from Pitcherless, Michael Ajedo.
Yeah.
He has been on this since spring training. Everyone was like, "Oh, draft Rafael Montero for your Mariners saves." Draft Mont, and he said draft Kendall Graveman.
Oh
And
God.
here we are. Kendall Graveman is getting the saves. He is the guy that when they have a lead, he's the one warming up in the ninth. Montero is the one facing him in the eighth. So, yeah, interesting development. Like we said, we probably don't anticipate whoever the closer is for the Mariners this year to be the closer for the Mariners at the end of the year or
Right.
next year, because they have a lot of those pieces coming up. Andres Munoz, if you're in a dynasty league and he's available somehow, he's the guy I would be all over for Mariner saves.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that before as well. So at least you're consistent, unlike the Mariners who are just driving owners crazy here. But it's fine. It's fine. Not a fan of Kendall Graveman, but if he's getting the saves, you might as well get him and pick him up and use them until the tires fall off there. Philip Evans, we mentioned him before. His stock is continuing to go up, going from 12% to 35%. Is this a real thing? Is this the Philip Evans movement going on in Pittsburgh?
I mean, it's been going on for 2 years now. And this is a guy who has always, not always, but ever since he hit the high minors with the Mets in 2016, he just hit the ball. And they actually mentioned him in the Mets broadcast the other day that when he came up for his first cup of coffee in 2017, he just had this knack for hitting. Much like Jeff McNeil and TJ Rivera before him, these guys that came up and they just knew how to put bat on ball. And the funny thing about this is last year, Philip Evans did great for Pittsburgh in their first 11 games before he had a collision and broke his jaw. He was batting 359, had a 409 WOBA, was just doing awesome. And then he breaks his jaw. Brian Hayes comes up, and that's the last we ever hear of Philip Evans. Yeah. But now it's like the reverse situation has happened. Brian Hayes gets hurt. Philip Evans comes up, and he's just look at his baseball smart. He knows how to hit, and he's actually done pretty well fielding. He's in the 93rd percentile of outs above average, so kudos to him. Yeah. That's a guy I have added last week in a lot of my fab runs. Especially if it's a batting average league, even in an on-base league, he's a good professional hitter. That max and average exit velos are up, so maybe there is a little bit more power there than we ever expected. But yeah, I'm 100% sold on Philip Evans. I have been for a long time since he was in Double-A. I just thought he could hit, and he can.
Next guy up is Cedric Mullins, who barely makes our review here, as he is owned in 69% of leagues.
Nice.
Up from 47. So remember, the cutoff is 70%. I don't want to know about you if you're above 70%. 69 meets the cutoff. Cedric Mullins has always been a guy that had some potential with the Orioles, because the Orioles, don't have anybody else. Well, actually, they do. Just when you think the Orioles don't have anybody, they always, bring up somebody else, right? And in this case, it was Austin Hayes, but Austin Hayes kept getting injured, and then for a while I think there was a DJ Stewart sighting, and
DJ Stewart's been in the corner spots mainly.
Yeah. So now Mullins, it looks like he might be getting regular playing time and without any conflict there. Is that the reality of what the situation in Baltimore is now?
He's a guy that I didn't go out and add in any of my leagues. I know a lot of people asked me if they should add him, and he's just off to such a good start that it's hard to tell them, no, don't play him.
Yeah.
But a lot of this, I think, a lot of the numbers are slightly inflated from that third game of the year where he went 5 for 5, had 3 doubles. Since then, he's only had one, two, I think only 3 or 4 extra base hits. The strikeout rate is up. The what was it, the strikeout? The whiffs are actually down, which was weird. Line drives are up, so that could explain a slightly higher batting average. I don't trust the hit tool.
Yeah.
But if he's getting full-time plate appearances and he plays for Baltimore, then he's probably a guy I keep on my bench.
Oh,
and
okay.
just as like injury depth. I don't trust him. I don't trust him enough to start him.
Yeah, I don't blame you. We've been burned by him before, but it looks like he finally has things figured out. So we'll see if that actually.
Yeah, the player similarity from Baseball Savant, a 2018 Colton Wong, a 2018 Elvis Andrus, a 2018 Alcides Escobar, and a 2018 Victor Caratini, and a 2018 pre-breakout Ketel Marte. It's a weird list of players. If he's like any of those first 4, then yeah, I don't want him. But if he's pre-breakout Ketel Marte and then he breaks out like Ketel Marte,
yeah,
I'd be interested.
All right, so keep an eye on him. Continue to keep an eye on him. But yeah, time's running out. It looks like his ownership rate continues to rise up. Luke Weaver. So speaking of guys we've been burnt by before, Luke Weaver, every time we think we're out of the Luke Weaver bandwagon, he brings us right back in. So he's been looking fairly decent this year.
Yeah, velocity's been up if I remember correctly. He's been hitting like 95. He's averaging 93.4, so averaging almost 94. The cutter is really good again after being really bad in 2020. But he's like you said, every time I want to say I'm out on him, just pulls me right back in.
Yeah, that's just one to do, but it looks like he's safe for now and just have a short leash on him. But it's really hard to argue. 21.2 strikeout rate, which is nothing to brag about, but it's the 1.5 walk rate that really has us kind of exciting because in a points league he's not losing points. And he keeps your whip intact. I mean, he's at 0.84 for the season so far. It is 21. Yep, I got the right numbers here. And then you mentioned velocity at 93.4. But the exit velocity is where the concern is at 94.
He's getting smacked around.
Yeah, 11.5 swinging strike rate. So you always want those in the double digits, although that's kind of on the low end compared to some of the other pitchers who might be available. And 34% outside the swing percentage, outside the strike zone swing percentage. So he's inducing swings. Swings.
So I mentioned that his cutter was good again. He's almost completely ditched it. He's only thrown it 3% of the time, which has made him purely a fastball changeup pitcher. And if we're looking at this, tell me if you've heard it before. Right-hander, doesn't walk batters, fastball changeup, has no discernible third pitch. And gives up a lot of hard contact. Mm-hmm. Sounds like a discounted Chris Paddock, no? I mean, like, you probably drafted Chris Paddock, like, right outside the top 100, around the top 150. Luke Weaver, you probably could have gotten, like, outside the top 200. And you get the same thing.
And he has a tough matchup coming in this week on Friday against the Atlanta Braves. I forgot that we already mentioned this, but Luke Weaver will be facing the Braves at Atlanta against Huascar Ynoa. So something has to give as we have 2 pitchers who are kind of on the crossroads. So we'll see. That should be an interesting one regardless, but that's a tough matchup though if the Braves are actually hitting that night. So,
I mean, really the only Brave hitting right now is Ronald Acuna.
No, that's what I meant.
Ozuna is not doing anything. Freeman is not doing anything. Albies is hurt. There's only one team above 500 in the National League East, and it's not the Braves. So,
yeah, so much for that prediction. They're actually in dead last, but there's also been a lot of canceled games.
For the Mets,
and that's why they're in first place.
Yeah, first place.
Yeah, 6-4 in the last 10 games because that's been their last 10 games, just those 6-4 games there. Anyway, Anthony DeSclafani. So you know how I like my Giants pitchers and stuff. So going from 60% to 37%. Have you turned around on Anthony DeSclafani now, Sean?
Not really. I mean, I've always liked the upside with
Yeah.
DeSclafani going back to his days in Cincinnati. I feel like he's one of those guys who never figures out how to put it together. And he's already 31, which makes me like feel really old.
Well, hold on now. We mentioned before sometimes older pitchers figure things out and are able to do things to prolong their careers and make them. I mean, we saw who the top 10 is of starting pitchers and drafts, and they're all over 31 years old. So maybe DeSclafani has turned the corner. And you know what's the best part about him, Sean? He plays for the Giants. So those home games are going to be juicy, right? At least that's, I mean, look at this. Look at this, man. Okay, so in the last time he was at home, he pitched at home. He was in Colorado, right? 6 innings pitched, only 1 walk given up, 8 strikeouts, scattered 6 hits, and in my points league, he got 26.5 points, and that's at home. Those are the matchups you dream about. If you're in a daily league and you see Anthony DeSclafani at home against a weak team like Colorado who can't do anything outside of Colorado, you dream about those streaming matchups, right?
Yeah.
You got to go for it. The next game is against the Phillies in Philadelphia against Chase Anderson, and he sucks, so whatever. Johnny Cueto's moved up, but all of a sudden he's on the IL with lateral collateral, whatever it is called.
His lateral collateral got hurt. Yep, that sounds about right. Too many shimmies. He did too many shimmies on the mound.
Shimmies, yeah.
Shimmy too hard.
Not enough crunches to be able to pull it off. Alex Cobb, my favorite batting practice hitter. Pitcher Alex Cobb with the Giants. I'm tired.
The Angels.
Yeah, different type of Titan there. So the Angels there. What have you seen out of Alex Cobb so far this year?
He's throwing his best pitch the most, which is something that when Dylan Bundy went from wherever he Baltimore to the Angels, he went primarily slider and he started pitching guys backward. And he started using that curveball early in counts instead of late in counts. And he just used his middling fastball to really sneak by guys. So for Alex Cobb, he's got probably so far in this early season the best splitter in baseball, 100th percentile in chase rate. He's getting just absolutely crazy amounts of swings and misses. And really, he's not getting the deepest vertical movement. It's dropping 31 inches, which is slightly above average for splitters. It's just, I think he's locating it very well down in the zone. And looking at his heat map, it's almost all right underneath the zone. So he's keeping it out of the zone, but definitely starting it in the zones where these batters are swinging. And by the time the ball gets there, they have no chance. Has a whiff rate of almost 50% on that splitter. He's throwing a curveball about 20% of the time, has a 35% whiff rate on that. His sinker has gotten crushed. So he's throwing it a third of the time, but you got to throw your fastball at least some. So, but yeah, he's got a great splitter and he's throwing that more than he's ever thrown it before. And he's getting good results.
Yeah, very good results. The last start was against the Royals with Cheese. It is the Royals, but the Royals are off to a good start, so maybe there's something to it. And the Angels are also off to a great start as well. But the last start was 10 strikeouts, 1 walk, 4 scattered hits. He did give up 3 earned runs, but he got the win, which is all that matters in fantasy. 23 big points in my league, and he is scheduled for 2 starts. One against the Rangers on Monday. Kohei Arihara.
Oh, that's going to be a great matchup.
But then he has to go to Houston against Lance McCullers.
Well, it depends. Is it the Houston A team or the Houston B team? Because the Houston B team got swept by Detroit.
Probably the C team at this point with all their injuries and the COVID protocols. Yeah. And the other thing about the Angels is you never know when they'll change their mind because they do have a 6-man rotation. So that's why Alex Cobb only has 2 starts, even though a lot of these pitchers already have 3 starts under their belts so far. So that's going to be something frustrating. But if he's going to get 2 starts, might as well take advantage and hope that he actually gets the 2 starts and not just the 1. But that 1 start against the Rangers should be enticing enough for you.
Yeah, I would start him no matter what with that start against the Rangers. I mean, the Rangers and the Pirates, and aside from their breakout yesterday or 2 days ago, the Cubs, In DFS, I'm streaming whoever is pitching against those teams.
Yeah. It seems to be the smart thing to do. Next up is the second baseman. We were talking about before we actually got on the air. But as you know, I drafted Nick Madrigal in my points league, and after weeks of just like slappy like numbers of 10 points or below, I said enough's enough. I need to get a more explosive second baseman, and I got the Jazz Chisholm from the Miami Marlins.
You didn't have anybody worse to drop?
No.
No?
I mean, shoot,
How many bench spots do you guys have?
Not a lot. I mean, it's only we start 9 hitters, we start 7 pitchers, and that leaves us with 6 bench spots. So 22 on the roster. On my IL, I just got Trent Grisham back, and then I had to bring. It's been a carousel. So I Grisham comes back, so I put Gallen there. Then Gallen comes back, but now Yordan Alvarez is in there because of COVID.
Yeah.
So I'm running out of space. So I had to. And then you always want to have more pitchers than hitters, just because it's a points league, which is really annoying. But whatever. But Madrigal was the weakest link, unfortunately, and I wasn't gonna drop Eugenio Suarez because now he's my DH. So
God no.
That wasn't the plan. My plan was to keep Madrigal for the long term and kind of have Ketel Marte. That's the other guy I have. Ketel Marte is hurt, so that's the reason why I had to make a decision at second base, because the plan was to get Marte, get me the points and assure me that steadiness, and while Madrigal kind of figures things out in the big league level and starts getting that pop that I need so he could be relevant in points leagues. And I inserted him into my second base spot because Marte got hurt and he has not done anything about it. But Jazz Chisholm has. He's a very, as we mentioned before the break, or before we started, I should say, very swing happy hitter. And it looks like it's a lot of based on luck. But he does seem to have a bit more pop in his bat than Nick Madrigal, and he still has some upside, probably as equal as Madrigal, according to Fangraphs, from what I remember. So I pull the trigger and see what the opposite side of the spectrum. So a swing happy hitter, as opposed to a patient hitter like Nick Madrigal, can do for me in this points league. So
hey, I wouldn't say Nick Madrigal's patient. He just doesn't miss when he swings, almost probably to a detriment.
listen,
you can't teach his contact. You can't teach his hit tool. You can't.
No, you
can develop extra base hits and power out of it. You can develop that. You can't develop that type of hit tool.
All right, so I was wrong about Jazz Chisholm. He's actually been pretty patient. 22.7% outside the zone strike zone, outside the strike zone swing percentage, and only a 9.8 swinging strike percentage, which it's the opposite with hitters. You want those to be below double digits, those swinging strike rates. Contact rate, that's where the problem is. It's 72.9%, which I would predict that Nick Madrigal is closer to 85, 90%.
When I looked at the, for some reason in the last day or two, I looked up the in-zone contact percentages, and like 1 and 2 were Nick Madrigal's 2 and Jake Cronenworth was 1. And he had like a 100% inside the zone swinging or contact percentage. So if he swung at a pitch in the zone, he made contact 100% of the time. And then, of course, he went out there and he shut down the Dodgers in extra innings 2 nights ago. That was fun.
So that's why I'm pulling the trigger. I mean, anything else you want to add about Jazz, or want to do the difference between Nick Madrigal and Jazz Chisholm here? Or
well, Jazz Chisholm was the guy who I've told the story probably once or twice over the last couple of years, but he was in Double-A. And a scout from the Miami Marlins came to watch the Rays Double-A team, the Biscuits, play the Arizona Diamondbacks Double-A team, the Jackson Generals.
Yeah.
And was talking to the scout, and I was like, "Oh, who you work for?" He said, "Oh, Miami." And I'm like, "What are you doing here? Like you have an assignment? Or are you here for a certain player?" And he said, "Yeah." And he pointed to Jazz Chisholm was doing some pregame infield drills. And he's a hell of a defender. If his bat just absolutely falls apart, he could stick in the majors on his defense alone. He's that good. As long as he doesn't go too crazy, because he does have a tendency to do wild things both at the plate and in the field that could screw him up. But at the time, he was batting under 200 in Double-A for the Jackson Generals while he was with Arizona. We were laughing at him in the press box, and right as we laughed at his 184 batting average or whatever it was, he just hit this absolute missile to left center. it had an exit velo of like 110, and we're like, oh, that's why he's a top prospect. And after the trade, which the scout basically told me Miami was trading for him, and it went right over my head. He finished the 2019 season in the minors with the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, which great name. He batted 284, 383 with a 494 slugging. The strikeouts were still a little high, but he started showing that all-around package that we really think Jazz Chisholm can become this elite player. And that's what he told me is he said, I'm going to get Jeter in his ear. I want Jeter to tell him, just play within yourself. You have all the physical tools you could ever want. Just don't do too much. And that's what it's looked like he's doing right now. He's just going out there. He's hitting. He's playing second base, even though he's probably a better defensive shortstop than Miggy Rojas. But
it's all right. Double eligibility for me. That's fine.
Yeah, double eligibility. There you
go. So I out of curiosity, I pulled up the numbers comparing Jazz to Nick Madrigal. And
he's lapping him, I'm sure.
But I have my own custom list at Fangraphs, so I was looking like, wow, this is a lot closer than I thought. And I look at the numbers; it's from 2020. So even when Jazz was pretty bad, he was last year he was still kind of matching with Madrigal in other aspects of the game. But in 2021, like you mentioned, it's a laugher at this point. So Madrigal is not the patient guy I thought he was in terms of, he's patient, but not as patient as Jazz Chisholm this year. So I mentioned
Jazz has always drawn a good bit of walks, but he's also developed this, it was almost an issue in the minors where he does have a good eye. He would not swing at bad pitches. He would work deep counts, but his swing and his approach didn't lend itself to working deep counts. Almost kind of how the situation Brandon Nimmo, Kevin Biggio, and there's a couple other hitters that come to mind. But they don't have these swings to get into deep 2-strike counts. And then once they get into these 2-strike counts, they strike out a lot because they don't have the swing to, prolong at bats, but they have the eyes to have these long at bats. Jazz is kind of in that boat right now. As long as he can keep the contact levels around major league average, his power and speed will play.
Yeah, and I'm talking
100%.
And I was just pointing out last year it was nowhere to be found, but this year it's a completely different ball game. It's 18.8% walk rate versus a 25% strikeout rate, which is pretty high, but it's going almost 1-for-1 with the walks. And then you look at Slappy over here, Nick Madrigal, and it's like, he walks a lot more than he strikes out, but it's like a very minute number. 6.3 walk rate versus a 2.1 strikeout rate, which is like, is this 1921 or 2021? What is this? The BABIP is way higher for Jazz than it is for Nick Madrigal.
Yeah,
so
he's got a 391 BABIP, so a little bit of expect a little regression. Right now, his expected batting average is 273, which if he can float a 273 XBA, he's going to be. He's going to no. Well, Nick Madrigal's going to post like a 300 XBA.
All right. Well, I'm waiting for Nick Madrigal to do so. He's right now.
He posted like a 330 XBA last year. But anyway, with Jazz, you see a lot of at his stops in the minors, 27 strikeout percentage or 27%, 31.2, 28.5, 32.5, 33.8 when he was really struggling with the Jackson Generals. And then when he went to Miami after the trade, the walk rate stayed the same. He cut the strikeouts back down to 25%, and that's where he had success. Ironically, in that early 2019, when he was still in the Arizona AA system, he was a 204, 305, 427 hitter. Not good. But for the AA, that was actually 12% over league average.
Yeah, and this is why I said that he's a little bit more impatient than Nick Madrigal. But then you look at the numbers here, and it's like 22.7% outside the zone swing percentage for Jazz, and then Nick Madrigal is at 26.7. So they're both patient hitters. But for some reason, Jazz this year has been a little bit more slightly patient than Nick Madrigal. And the other thing, the reason why you mentioned that Madrigal is not that patient is because actually, unlike Jazz Chisholm, Nick Madrigal sees more pitches inside the strike, a lot more pitches inside the strike zone than Jazz Chisholm does. It's a 48.6% versus for Nick Madrigal versus 38.7% for Jazz. So a 10% difference on Madrigal's way. So that might be explaining why the contact rate is so ridiculously high for Nick Madrigal at 98.6%. Hell, even outside the strike zone, Nick Madrigal this year is having a 95.8%
It's insane.
contact rate.
It's insane.
No, I mean, we know what we were getting with Nick Madrigal. Unfortunately, it has not led up to anything. Just a lot of weak hitted balls. To this day in Major League Baseball, since he's been called up by the White Sox, he has 0 barrels accounted for his name going back to 2020, and it's the same story in 2021. 0. He has as many barrels as I have, Sean Flannery. So that's a problem. A 14.3 hard hit rate versus Jazz Chisholm, who's at 53.8%, is what we talked about. Yeah, contact rate's good. He might get a batting average, but it's empty calories. Jazz Chisholm, yeah, patient almost to a fault, strikes out way too much, but he's a little bit more explosive at this point. And
I don't doubt you or blame you for switching there. Yeah. Especially in your format, in a points league format, where Nick Madrigal is slightly less valuable. The one thing,
it's a damn shame too.
The last little bit on Jazz, his swinging strike percentage through the years, 16.9, 17.3, 16.0, 14.7, 15.7, 16.5, and then he gets to the majors last year, 9.5, and this year, 9.8. Where do we expect that to end up? I mean, because it seems like a consistent 15 to 17% every stop in the minors. And then he gets to the majors and it drops 6%. Like, that just seems insane. Like, that's where I expect the most regression from him, is the contact and the swinging strikes will go back up. And he turns into Rugnan Odor with speed. I don't know. It's a scary thought. Like the floor for Jazz Chisholm just seems very low. That's my worry with Jazz Chisholm.
Yeah, but that's part of the price, though, right? I mean, you're paying for that high risk because it's a much better ceiling than Nick Madrigal at this point. But you're right.
You know me though. I'm a sucker for high floors. I will whiff on the high ceiling guys in favor of the high floor guys. So maybe that's why I like Madrigal over Jazz.
Well, if Madrigal would have been at that decent floor, he'd probably still be on my team. But like I said, or like you mentioned too, in this format, I had to do it. Those single digit points are not going to get me any victories anytime soon. So, a few questions out there from the folks. Brad, who's a regular contributor to the Baseball Life Facebook group, that's where we're going live this morning, is right on cue asking about Jazz Chisholm. So I hope we answer your question. He's all right. So basically with Jazz Chisholm,
he's
well, I mean, you're basically
he's fun to watch. He's fun to watch.
Absolutely,
but that electric blue hair. Oh, it's so much. He hit a home run. His last home run, I believe, yesterday or the day before, was an absolute missile line drive, and it almost didn't look like it was. It looked like it was going to bounce off the wall. And it was such a line drive. It didn't hit the top of the wall and just like bounce up. It skipped off the top of the wall. It was like the coolest thing. And he's like sprinting around the bases and he does his little Euro step as he comes back across home plate.
I saw that.
That's his thing. That's his thing now.
That's awesome.
I'm expecting him to get hit by a pitcher for doing it sooner or later. But hey, it's cool.
Yeah, well, that's just gonna lit a fire on his ass, just like it lit a fire under Tim Anderson's ass. It just went on to have great seasons despite the fact that we're not fans of that approach at the plate. Tim Anderson a little bit swing happy, although I'm still surprised that Jazz isn't that aggressive, but he does strike out a lot. But that's the thing, you gotta know what you're expecting when you pick up a guy like Jazz Chisholm and stick with a guy like Nick Madrigal. I mean, I expect Jazz to fall from the face of the earth a little bit here, but it's still more explosive than what Nick Madrigal was giving me, and that's the point. But then at the same time, I'm kind of sad that Nick Madrigal had to leave my team because he still has upside. I mean, he still can hit his way on base and do some damage in the base paths, but if he's not going to do anything with that bat in terms of barrels and hard hit rates, what's the point? Anyway, moving on. Will Dane Dunning lead the Major League Baseball in ERA there, Sean?
It's funny because he plays in a very pitcher-friendly park. So far through 3 starts, his ERA is 0.60. Granted, those starts have some good teams. Toronto's a very good offensive team this year. Yeah. Tampa has been probably better offensively than they have defense or pitching wise. Yeah. And then his last start came against Baltimore, which we all know everything that we need to know about Baltimore, especially since it was Baltimore away from Camden Yards. Mm-hmm. But he's one of those guys that just looks like he knows how to pitch. Looking at the pitch heat maps, keeping the sinker low, the slider even lower, the changeup low, bottoming out the zone. The sinker is doing well because he is keeping it low, 158 batting average against, only a 235 XBA. I don't think Dane Dunning's ever going to be this ace, but he could maybe have 1 year of, where he just goes, crazy. Maybe he's the right-handed Dallas Keuchel. That's more fun to watch. I don't know. But maybe he could. I think it's if this were Mythbusters, I would definitely say plausible. This is a plausible. He could lead the league in ERA, just based on his home park and everything.
I don't know about leading the league in ERA, but no, I mean, all I'm asking from Dane Dunning is 5 innings and just a bunch of quality starts. That's all I ask from him. I don't ask for too much for Dane Dunning. What if it turns out that Dane Dunning was the best pitcher in that trade?
In that trade, that'd be wild.
With Adam Eaton, and Lucas Giolito blows an arm out because he's been overused, and Reynaldo Lopez can't stick in the majors despite having the most electric stuff in that trade. And then Dunning ends up having a 16-year career or some crap like that. That would piss me off.
He turns into Lance Lynn when Lance Lynn's already in the retirement home.
Shut up! No, stop that. Chris is asking about the balls, the new baseballs in play, and you already answered that question. Traveling about 10 feet less in the air, but exit velos are up. Okay.
Yeah, they are. Max EVs are about 1.5 higher this year compared to last year. So you are seeing some guys having much higher exit velos than they did last year. The ball's bouncier, but for some reason, it's not carrying as far, which is interesting.
Like I said, what if they're using a rubber ball and that's why it's bouncier, really? But,
boing, boing, boing.
But yeah. You ever play baseball or maybe even softball with your friends and you use a rubber ball and then just see that ball travel a million miles away? And then we lose the ball and then game would be over because that was our only ball.
That was our only ball.
Jasson Dominguez, he's asking Chris, same guy. Jasson Dominguez, is he the next superstar outfielder? And I mean,
he hasn't played a professional game yet. I'm not going to say anything about a guy who hasn't played a professional game yet.
Yeah, and that's a tough question to ask because we talked about some of those minor league baseball players, some of those center fielders, right? Especially like Jared Kelenic, and then we also talked about Josh Lowe and a bunch of others. There's like a line forming, and Jasson Dominguez would be not all the way in the back because you got to love his tools, and he's in the right organization.
I don't think he's going to be a center fielder, though. Like, if you look at these videos that get posted like once every month and a half or two, he is like built like a linebacker.
Yeah.
And he's not very tall. I think he's only like 5'10", and that might be generous. And so they have him listed as 190 on like all of the websites, and that's not a thing. He's at least 225 pounds. So he's built like a tank. I don't think
London Fletcher is what you're telling me. London Fletcher.
Basically, if only he could hit like David Fletcher, then maybe I'd be all over him.
Okay, so the one thing I don't know about Sean is that he's a Mets fan, so the bias is already coming out as soon as he mentioned David Fletcher. No, but honestly, you know who else looks like a linebacker playing center field right now, Sean?
Who?
Mike Trout, man. Every time I see him, he should be in the NFL right now.
He really should. He'd be a hell of a player.
He'd be helping the Rams win that Super Bowl finally.
But yeah, the last article I'm seeing was that Cashman indicated back at the beginning of March, the organization was not yet ready to reveal a plan for Dominguez's development through the minors. And like, I get that right now he's got a 55 future value hit tool, 60 in-game power, 70 raw power with 70 speed. You just don't see that. You don't.
No, I know. It's a tough sell. But you know what it is, Sean? It's like Yankee fans see this and like if they see a switch hitting outfielder and like, oh man, that's Mickey Mantle right there. We got our Mickey Mantle, man. That's what they got. Tell me I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what they see there.
Our fearless leader is coming in to tell us that he's built like Trout. He's 4 inches shorter than Trout and is probably already at Trout's weight. I'm telling you, that's
why I said London Fletcher.
I don't like Jasson Dominguez could be great. I mean, or he could just be the best cell phone video home run hitting guy we've ever seen. And then the second he faces professional pitching, he could be Kevin Maitan. Like, this is kind of the hype I remember coming from Kevin Maitan when the Braves got him, or the Braves got him. It was like, oh, he's so great. And then he faces professional pitching and just melts. I don't know. It's interesting.
All right. Well, I can't help it but think that this is just Sean being a Mets fan and hitting on the Yankees. So from an as close to an hold on, from as close to an unbiased guy right here in Felipe who roots for both the Cubs and the White Sox, I'm gonna say that Jasson Dominguez is a guy you got to keep an eye on just because of all the hype. And if you're in a fantasy league, you're almost what's that word?
If I was in a fantasy league, I would have already traded him. Because I've seen
you would have.
Some of the trades I've seen him mentioned in are like insane. I've seen people trade Jasson Dominguez and get back Wander Franco plus.
Well, that was my point. If you're in a fantasy league, you're obligated to have him on your roster right now, even if you don't have a minor league slot to protect him, and you're obligated to have him because of all the hype that surrounds him and the high price and the Yankee premium. Like we mentioned this before, Yankee premium is a real thing in fantasy baseball because there's so many Yankee fans out there, and they're just as big as homers as any other fan base, no matter what they tell you, right? They're just as big homers as any other fan base in Major League Baseball, and they all want to be on that ground floor of the next Mickey Mantle, or in this instance, the next Mike Trout. By the way, London Fletcher, when he was playing, he was 5'10", 245 pounds. So
hey, that's honestly what Jasson Dominguez looks like right now, just purely based on cell phone video.
But as far
he's
as
basically me, but instead of like 2% muscle, he's 200% muscle.
Yeah, and,
I mean that's basically me.
And then finally, okay, come on, man. The next thing you gotta. So he's obviously asking about real baseball, right? Not fantasy. So in real baseball aspect, right? Again, same issue. You got to keep an eye on him until and see what materializes. We have the technology, we have the access to it, not like before where some of these minor leaguers would just kind of disappear from the face of the earth and you never hear from them ever again until some snarky sports writer would bring them up. But in this instance, you kind of have to bring it up. You have to pay attention because he could be the next thing. And as baseball fans, it's exciting to see the next great center fielder wherever that guy plays. Now, here's the thing. Now he's only 18 years old. Sean, you of all people know this better than anybody, but I think me as a Cub fan,
I fade high school bats in the draft, so I'm already like very skeptical of the signings out of the Dominican that are like 16 years old, 15 years old. It's
not even from the Dominican. I mean, I grew up with being told that Josh Fitters was going to be a thing. A lot of things can change in the next 2 or 3 seasons for this young kid. He's only 18 years old. Lots of things can change. He can either be the next Ken Griffey Jr. or he could be the next, I don't know, who's a bad center fielder. I don't know, who's 5'10". Vincent McCracken, maybe? I don't know.
Dexter Fowler.
Oh, shut up.
Switch hitter under 6 feet. Oh, I think actually,
no, he's a little bit 6 feet. Yeah, he's like
6'4".
Yeah.
6'5". Jesus, I always thought he was small.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, man. Yeah,
he was so fast though. He had all those stolen bases earlier.
But the point is that it all ranges of results can come up out of this. So give the kid a break. He's only a teenager. Like you mentioned, he hasn't even played a game yet. So let's see him in action.
Yeah, once he starts playing games, I feel like I can make a more accurate assessment. But right now, all we have are these cell phone videos of him hitting baseballs. Like that's it. And that's just so. We saw Yoenis Cespedes do that before he came back from his injury in 2020. And yeah, he looked awesome. And then we put him in a game and he looked like absolute shit. Like, I'm sorry.
So Brad mentions about Jazz, going back to Jazz Chisholm. It might as well rename this a Jazz Chisholm show.
Yeah, this is really the Jazz and Jason show.
But I noticed, you tell me if I'm wrong, because you're a video game player, but Brad from Milwaukee, he's in a strat league, and he ended up with Jazz on his team, and he's a fast guy, and all this. But it seems like I kind of bumped into some random MLB The Show YouTubers, and they all have Jazz Chisholm on the team. Is that a thing to just go after Jazz Chisholm?
I don't know if he has anything higher than his base card right now. I've been playing it a lot the last couple of days, and once I get off the show, I'm going to go play it. But
play the show. I got you.
Yeah, I'm not sure if he has like a future stars card or anything. I do know that Jasson Dominguez has one.
What about last year? What about, because this is around the time
he did have
pandemic.
He had a future stars card last year that was really good.
That explains it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I was just wondering, like I said, the pandemic, I got a chance because of you kind of introduced me to baseball people playing video games online. So when I checked it out, a lot of these guys had Jazz Chisholm on their superstar teams. So Jazz Chisholm would be on teams with like Mickey Mantle and Ted Williams and Babe Ruth. Like, what the hell? And then there's Jazz Chisholm. So let's see here.
I wonder what those dugout conversations would sound like.
Oh boy. Yeah, they probably.
Yikes!
Listen, it's Jackie.
I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that.
Well, let's put it in perspective. It's Jackie Robinson weekend, and you can go from there. Use your imagination there.
Hey, maybe we could put Jazz and Jackie on the same team. And then if somebody says anything to either of them, they just go apeshit on them and just like hit like 400.
Yeah, then Jackie would punch somebody in the face because he's fine. Yeah, the reins are off finally, right? Jazz. Speaking of Jazz, I found out this weekend or this past week that Jackie Robinson would do a lot of jazz concerts for civil rights progress and movements and all that. So I did not. So it goes jazz music. It's all related. Jackie Robinson.
We're just gonna rename the show the Jazz Show for this episode.
The Jazz is all about. See, jazz is like the new Coke. It always tastes good forever. Travis Shaw is next on the list. As we kind of, we're not going to get to all of these players, but I'm just going by order there, Sean, unless you see somebody. You know what? We don't need to talk about Travis Shaw. You want to talk about somebody else?
Basically, the only two that I want to talk about are Shaw and Fulmer. And initial thoughts on Shaw. Christian Yelich is now on the IL. Travis Shaw has already been kind of taking a step up for that Milwaukee lineup. He's going to have to take it up another step with Yelich out.
Fantastic.
But that Milwaukee lineup's actually surprising some people. So definitely pay attention to him. And then Michael Fulmer is back in the rotation. He has just missed so much time over the years. But whenever he pitched, before the injuries, he was so good. I mean, velocity was high. He had first the ACL, and then he had Tommy John. I mean, it was an absolute brutal couple of years for him, but he is back in the rotation. He went up against the Astros B team and got like nothing but ground balls. It was insane. He's still only 28 years old. And
33 years old in modern terms.
33 in modern terms. The velocity on the sinker was up over 95 again after in 2020 when he first came back from the injury. The fastball was sitting 93. Now it's back up to 95 plus. He's throwing his slider. So far this year, he's throwing the slider more than either of his sinker or fastball, and it's getting over a 34% whiff rate. Michael Fulmer, this is a guy who's a former first round pick or compensatory pick, I believe, but close enough. He's good. And he pitches in Detroit. That's a pitcher's park. Yep. And I believe you said that he has a 2-start week coming up.
Oh, yes. Thanks for reminding me. I got you, man. I got you. I got it. I got it up here. All right. Tyler Anderson. I want to talk about Tyler Anderson because I'm seeing some
he's so boring. But he is pitching against Tyler Anderson in one of the starts.
In Pittsburgh, and then Danny Duffy on Sunday.
That's an absolute grab Michael Fulmer and start him for 2 starts this week and be happily surprised. If I'm wrong, come and give me all the hell next week.
All right, let's talk. I want to talk about Tyler Anderson because he's a mixed bag of things, right? Like you said, he is boring, right? But there are some things that, has a very high whip rate and a home run rate that's not something to brag about. But he does have some intriguing stuff. Like he is inducing a lot more swing outside the strike zone than I'm used to seeing. He has a 13.7 swinging strike rate. Where was this whole time, right? Like 13.7 swinging strike rate. 90 mile per hour fastball. 86.2 exit velocity against, and only a 36.7% hard hit rate according to StatCast. What's going on with Tyler Anderson here?
I'm always so confused because I always think Tyler Anderson and Tyler Chatwood are the same person.
No, it's Tyler Anderson.
They're both lefties, right?
No. Chatwood's right-handed.
Chatwood's right-handed?
But they're both from the Rockies.
And they both usually have really high walk rates, right?
Yeah, because they play for the Rockies. But not anymore.
So they were both on the right. That's what it was.
It's another left-hander. Kyle Freeland. Tyler Anderson, Kyle Freeland. They're the same people.
Kyle Freeland never walked guys, though. I always thought Chatwood was a lefty with control issues.
They both suck. And
so he's throwing the cutter more, which seems to be a trend that we're seeing in baseball the last couple of years. Is a lot of these guys that don't have elite fastballs are throwing cutters, and they're finding success with them. So that could be a good thing. 217 batting average against so far on his cutter. He's gotten a little lucky, 305 XBA against it. and almost a 100-point difference between his WOBA against the cutter and his expected WOBA. So he's not generating, none of his pitches have over a 27.5%. No, that's his put away. His fastball has a 36% whiff rate, and his changeup has a 31% whiff rate. So that's interesting because his fastball is, he's throwing it inside to right-handed hitters. There's like this heat map, and it's like all the red is just tight on the outside part of the plate. It's not elevated. It's waist high. Yeah. The changeup is way outside and high. You don't like to see high changeups really. If I have to pick a Pittsburgh pitcher, I'm probably taking Brubaker. I think he's the best one out of the whole clan.
You're reading my mind. I wanted to talk about JT Brubaker because I don't know what to make of him either. So let's go with the numbers really quick here. 27.3 strikeout rate, and that's reason enough to go and get him, right? At least in my book.
Yeah.
But let's see, anything that is a red flag. The swing outside the zone swing rate is not as high as Tyler Anderson, so there's a little bit flukiness.
He's elevating his fastball more. He's got a 45.5% whiff rate on his four-seam fastball. That's interesting considering his fastball does not have very high spin rate.
Yeah, and that's another concern. So it seems a little bit fluky. He only has a 10.5% swinging strike rate, which is 3% lower than Tyler Anderson. But I think you planted this seed on our first show in the regular season. Might have been a Thursday show that we did, and you mentioned Chad Kuhl. I'm like, Chad Kuhl, and you mentioned some things, so I kind of kept that in mind. And then you're seeing that the Pirates, now we're all curious about these Pittsburgh Pirates. Is this a real thing? Is this a fluky thing? I don't know what to make of it, but it does look good on face value, so to speak. So that's why I'm kind of curious, like what's going on in Pittsburgh, that some of these pitchers are, maybe they're not as bad as we thought they were. I don't know.
And it's funny because if you pull up Chad Kuhl on Savant, the players' similarities, the first two,
get out.
2020 JT Brubaker, 2021 JT Brubaker. So Pittsburgh's really going for something here. They
don't know
have
what it
something
is.
That I'm not sure it's good, but they have an idea, which is always how you should start something. And it all starts with an idea. It all started with a chair, to quote Juno.
And as much, as much as we give them a lot of flack about Joe Musgrove, let's not forget that Joe Musgrove kind of turned it around late in the year last season and started posting.
Yeah, because he said,
numbers.
Screw what these guys are telling me to do. Yeah. He said, I'm going to throw my four seam and I'm going to throw my breaking stuff more than my fastballs because it's better.
No, you know what it is, Sean? You know what I think it is, Sean? I think everybody just started listening to Chad Kuhl. Chad Kuhl.
He said all the leader. Cool things.
Clubhouse leader Chad Kuhl. He's gonna right the ship on that pirate boat.
I'm surprised I haven't seen any fantasy names named after Kuhl.
Oh yeah, well it's because it's Chad Kuhl. He's not, unlike his name, he's not a very cool person. How far on this list do you want to keep going? I mean, we mentioned JT Brubaker. I see Wade Miley. We talked about before.
No,
Adam Duvall.
No.
Jake Unit. Jake McGee. Oh no, not Jake McGee. Sorry. Corey Knebel.
Knebel, everyone went and ran out. He was like Julian Merriweather of the second or third fab period. Everyone was like, "Oh, Corey Knebel has 2 saves for the Dodgers," and everybody went back and added him, and he doesn't have a save since. Meanwhile, Julian Merriweather, I spent a quarter of my fab on, and he hit the IL.
So that's what it's about. You just want to try to, kind of justify your Julian Merriweather thing from last week. Okay. Well, speaking of the Blue Jays, Rafael Dolis is up in percentage as well, 20%. We talked about Dane Dunning. John Gray continues to get lit up despite the fact that there was some good things to see about him.
He had that one very good start this year.
That's what I was
and then 2 bad starts.
Jurickson Profar. I don't know.
Chirpy with Clayton Kershaw yesterday.
They
yelled at each other. Clayton Kershaw got all mad that there was a catcher interference. And Clayton Kershaw said that it wasn't a major league swing and that he could have hurt Austin Barnes. So, of course, all Kershaw was mad about was, hey, that's my personal catcher. You better not mess him up.
If Austin Barnes is hurt, does that mean that Will Smith finally gets all the playing time he can handle? Please.
I'm going to need to figure out what Jurickson Profar's Venmo is. I'll send some money. I'll donate to the cause.
Donate to one of his charity cases. The Jurickson Profar needs a new mansion charity to get him far and pro baseball. So is he going to be playing every day now? I know Fernando Tatis is back, but the Padres, they have so much depth. I'm always afraid. I know I picked them up in our league, but I'm not sure how much I can trust them. Can we
Well,
trust Jurickson
right now
Profar?
they have him starting as a platoon in left field, with Tommy Pham being his platoon partner, facing Profar facing righties and Pham facing lefties.
How's that
Which
for
is
fam? He escaped Tampa Bay only to go back to Tampa Bay,
yeah,
the Rays of the West. Remember
but
when we said about the Padres? Oh, they're an analytics team, but they're not as bad as Tampa Bay. Well, it turns out that they are.
yeah, and
So
so the last week though, Pham played 4 of the 6 games, and Profar played in all of the last 6 games, but he went left field, second base, right field, left field, first base. So Profar is just playing everywhere. Pham, they are playing him a lot, more than an average bench player. So it's not like the straight platoon.
yeah.
So that's
No,
interesting.
it's a Rays thing, you know. It's so when you look at the Padres, you're in Rays mode. Like, all right, well, just because he's listed on the bench doesn't mean he's not playing, but it's when is he playing, where is he playing, and same thing with Profar, which is great for eligibility purposes. But I think now that Tatis's back, I think we're gonna start seeing Profar less and less. But I hope that's not the case because and they still got Kim on the lurking around as well, and Jake Cronenworth. They got so many good players and not enough spots to put them in, and so that's going to be frustrating. Moving down the list here, Casey Mize is reaching that 70% threshold very soon. Colin Moran, as they is want to do, is to appear very early on these waiver wire pickups. Every April, Colin Moran's name always shows up, and then by May, June, he's just this kind of disappears. Another Pirates player, Adam Frazier, is in there, going from 21 to 31%. As people, I think you might have mentioned it, are getting desperate for second baseman, and so Frazier suddenly looks like a good player to pick up. That's a bad name. Chris Taylor. I'm pretty sure that has something to do with Cody Bellinger.
No,
Is it Cody or Corey? Now I'm confused.
Cody.
Who's Corey Bellinger?
There's a Clay Bellinger. His dad played for the Yankees.
That's what it was. Okay, thank you for that. Josh Fleming getting some love here from 16 to 25%. Is he getting regular starts there in Tampa there, Josh Fleming?
Not regular starts. I think he's following openers mainly.
Okay.
And that was another guy I got to watch a bunch in 2019. He's just like this really boring, crafty lefty.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's a Tampa arm. I mean, he's going to be the Ryan Yarborough for when Ryan Yarborough becomes too expensive for the Rays.
Yeah, when he gets traded to the Padres.
Yeah, when Yarborough requires when he wins his arbitration case for $2.1 million, and the Rays have to non-tender him because they can't afford it. Like what?
Avisal Garcia going from 14 to 23%, and that's probably because Christian Yelich is an injury.
Yep.
So do you like Avisal Garcia?
Not really. I've always like the tools have always been so good, but he's one of those I don't think the ability will ever catch up to the tools.
Not even as a temporary fill-in for Christian Yelich?
I would hope I had somebody better on my bench already.
No, well, I don't, so I don't have any outfielders. So the other thing of Avisal Garcia when he was coming up from the Detroit Tigers is that there were slight comparisons to Miguel Cabrera. He kind of looked like him and similar profile, like Miguel Cabrera light or diet Miguel Cabrera, which is a thing now that you see how big Miguel Cabrera got. And he never lived up to those expectations. Not with the White Sox, not with the
he had the one great crazy year, right? With the White Sox.
Yeah, and then
he mashed lefties.
Yeah, and then he walked.
Yeah, he had a 330, 380, 506. And then
the good old days.
Then he went back to 230s. Almost everything dropped 100 points. 236, 281, 438 the next year.
So remember when I mentioned that I was looking for a second baseman, I ended up with Jazz Chisholm. It always comes back to the Jazz. So some of the names that were available for me were Adam Frazier. And then I had to, kind of figure if I wanted to keep add one of those guys or keep Nick Madrigal. And then there was also Luis Arraez and Joey Wendell. So with those 5 names that I just mentioned, Madrigal, Jazz Chisholm, Adam Frazier, Wendell, Luis Arraez, which one of those names would you have gone with? Only pick one.
Jazz is the easy answer. Okay, but I almost want to pick Luis Urias.
Of course you do. You can't help yourself.
I can't. It's
a disease, Sean.
He has like the highest walk rate in all of baseball.
It's an addiction, which is
weird. He's only batting 154, and his batted ball metrics aren't good again. But he's walking That means something, right? I'm telling you, he was just like one of those guys in the minors that I was like, this guy is the best prospect in baseball.
Yeah.
He is hit everywhere. And then he gets to the majors and he can't hit. It's like, I don't know what it is. I have no words for why he's so bad, but hey, he's figuring it out, kind of. I don't know.
Kind of, sort of, maybe one day. Last name on the list, and then we can wrap it up. Our favorite catcher of all time, Tucker Barnhart. We're going from 19 to 27%. Remember when I said that this is the time of year when owners realize that the guy that they drafted at catcher is not very good. So they look at Wilson Ramos like, hey, Wilson
Ramos.
And Tucker Barnhart, remember what I said about him? Is like he gets all the playing time he can handle in Cincinnati. I think people are starting to see that that is becoming a truth. But let me tell you, as a former Tucker Barnhart owner, it's, yeah, playing time is important, but it's what you do with that playing time that is equally as important. Tucker Barnhart doesn't do shit with that playing time.
He's batting right 387 so far this year with 1100 OPS.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've been swooned by him before like that. So I'm not gonna fool me again. Not gonna fool. But you know what we say about catchers is like the older they get, the better they get, especially offensively.
Yeah.
So maybe it's one of those things where that's what's going on. But no, I don't think so. No, you can't fool me again.
He had a home run the other day. Stevenson had a walk-off.
Don't do it.
So Barnhart has played in 9 games, and Tyler Stevenson has played in 9 games.
So they finally got that 50-50.
There might be a 50-50 thing going here. And I believe Tyler Stevenson is actually my catcher number 2 in the Baseball Life League. And so he's not really helping me out too much, but he's not hurting me when he does play because he's hitting the ball like very well, just like he did last year. So yeah, I like Tyler Stevenson. I think he is the guy. They'll play Barnhart until the wheels fall off, but when they inevitably do, like you believe they will, Tyler Stevenson is going to be right there.
So Barnhart, just to show you how fluky this is and how fraudulent he looks, he has 2 home runs, 424 on base percentage. And
he's always had like a higher walk rate though, for like a catcher. No,
well, this is my point though, right here, 36.4 strikeout rate. So
oof, that's not good.
If that doesn't scream fluke, I don't know what does. But you're right.
Hey, maybe he's selling out for power.
Or maybe because he sees less playing time, he's not adjusting as he's used to before, or maybe just to get more playing time, he's getting more aggressive. I don't know. I don't care. But you're right. He's always been a guy who can get to anywhere between 9 and 12% walk rate, and a very good manageable strikeout rate. And it's
now he's at 36, and his his walk percentage has dropped to 3%. I would assume that there's a swing percentage increase there.
I was just getting to it. Let me see if I could find it.
He's got a 55% whiff rate against breaking balls, but he's batting 375. So yeah, that screams like Austin Riley's first 2 weeks in the big leagues.
And as far as the Fangraph numbers go, I mean, he's he's at 18.2 outside the swing percentage. So he's still a incredibly patient hitter. He doesn't swing anywhere outside the strike zone. He's getting more aggressive with those pitches inside the strike zone. He's actually seen more pitches inside the strike zone. He's making decent amount of contact. Oh, actually, no, in the strike zone he is, but overall he's not.
He's got a career high 10.5% barrel percentage, which is good. Line drive percentage is up.
It screams fluke. And the swinging strike has gone up the last 3 seasons, including this year. 12.3% is the highest it's been, and he's posting it in 2021. So it doesn't sound right. And with the part-time
he's whiffing more on fastballs. How old is he now? 30. Yeah, that's 30. He used to be like low teens in whiff rate on fastballs. Last year 20%, this year 23.5%.
Yeah, because he used to make really good contact overall, and then now he's only at 72%. So I wonder and again, it might be because he's not playing as much, so he's not up there regularly. So who knows? Bottom line is, don't trust him. Please don't do it. Don't do this. But many people are. He went from 19% to 27%. So Godspeed to you if you believe in him. And that wraps it up. That's the last of the list. I got nothing else for you, Sean, unless you have something for me.
I want one last question from Brad. He said, if I can ask, does Leotis Taveras have any chance of hitting MLB pitching? And if you had listened to me before the season started, I would have told you no. And it's just playing out. So quick pat on the back for myself here.
You take your victory lap.
There you
Take
go.
your victory lap. I know we do.
We run it around. There we go. Leonis
No,
Tavares is not a major league hitter. He might have major league legs, but he does not have a major league bat. So yeah, get rid of him. There's no use.
He's got legs, major league legs. 70. Hey, that 70 prospect speed is a very tough thing to break away from. So if you're in a roto league, you kind of have to force yourself. Like one of these days, he's gonna hit and he's gonna get on base and he's gonna steal 30 bases. If you're in a points league, just get rid of him already. Just it's no use.
Yeah, there's no reason. Like, why are you here?
Yeah. But yeah, getting back to the victory laps, I know that it triggers some of the Baseball Life members when we brag about, oh, we're undefeated.
Hey, I'm losing this week.
So am I. I'm losing to Leon, who's been very like, oh, so you want to celebrate your April championship? Like, hell yeah. You know why, Sean? Because everybody else gets to do their victory laps. Why not us? But the difference is that we also call our mistakes and our I mean, we've done it numerous times since we started this podcast. But anytime we get something right, we're gonna run our freaking victory laps because we earned that shit. So thank you very much. But yeah, we might see our first defeats. You might lose to Matthew Wheeling, who's been the worst team in the league. And,
hey, it's about when you catch him, right? He's getting hot.
Yeah, he's finally figuring out this league. And then Leon defeated me in the basketball league. So if he beats me in this league, he'll have 2 on me already. But it's okay. I'm gonna make that up soon enough in the basketball league, and I'm definitely gonna see him at least 3 more times, right? In this league as well. I think that's our format. 4 times each. Yep, 4 times each. So 3 more times, Leon, with me.
Hey, I just need I got Robbie Ray and Freddie Peralta on the bump for me today in the Baseball Life League. Yeah. I'm losing in strikeouts right now and losing in strikeouts to walks and ERA. Hey, they can just each give me a win, maybe one of them a quality start. Is that asking too much?
Yeah, I'm already resigned to the fact that I lost this matchup against Leon. So I'm already
my offense 224 average, 304 on base has just been terrible. Yeah, so yeah, we had a rough offensive week. Yeah, it's not much to say other than that.
And I'm so sorry. For those who don't know who Leon is, he does his own podcast with Jacob Anthony Moses over at the Ballless Life Facebook group, part of the Life Group Network. He does have a podcast called The Step Back every Friday night. It's a great show to follow. I'm actually going to hope to catch up on it today, maybe when I work out or do some chores around the house, as I'd like to get my basketball fix from those guys whenever they appear. So speaking of podcasts, there are other podcasts in the Life Group Network. Tomorrow, Dong City goes on the air at night. I did not realize that Vince was out last week, but they brought in Melvin. So check out their last episode before you check in their new episode this upcoming Monday. The Audible, they're ramping up their NFL draft analysis. Matt Bushnell and Randy Hammond on the docket for that one. The Workshoot podcast, they've had so many shows to cover, include because of WrestleMania weekend. I don't know if they're back to just doing one show a week for Thursday nights, so we'll see. And now there's a wrestling program on Thursday nights, so now it's like they can't keep up with with there being a wrestling show every day of the week. So we'll see how that goes. What am I missing here? Oh, the Step Back Friday nights. Yeah, they moved to Friday nights. And every Sunday morning, we kick off your Life Group podcast right here on the Total Basis podcast. So for me, Felipe, that is Sean over there. Have a good day, everybody.